Right, it's time for us to have our daily look at some of the newspapers and website stories which have caught our eye.
Yes, Miatta Fahnbulleh is Chief Executive of the New Economics Foundation. Welcome to the programme.
Hello.
So let's start with the story in The Guardian. UK Treasury on course to exceed this year's deficit target by £16 billion. I wasn't surprised to read that headline. Tell us more.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, look, we were supposed to have a budget November 6th, which has now been cancelled. And normally with a budget, we get the Office for Budget Responsibilities kind of health check of the economy. So that hasn't happened. But interestingly, a think tank, Resolution Foundation, has done a bit of analysis and showed that the government's about to completely blow its target, partly driven by the fact that the economy has slowed down, so tax receipts are less, but also the fact that we had these spending commitments from the Chancellor, the Prime Minister, over the summer and into the autumn. And, you know, the thing I find really fascinating is, you know, it is the end of austerity. Austerity dominated our economics and our politics for about 10 years. And it's suddenly come to an end with so little fanfare, with so little discussion, despite, you know, the fact that it's had huge impact on our public services, which are on their knees, and also the economic cost of it.
And the fiscal rules, as outlined by previous chancellors, I mean, what's happened to them? We're still meant to be locked into them, aren't we?
We are meant to be locked into
2% of GDP?
Yeah, 2% of GDP. They've been blown. They've gone. So the government is going to have to review its fiscal rule. And for me, the really important question for them is to learn for the last 10 years. So, you know, the work, the analysis we've done suggests that actually the economy is now smaller as a consequence of austerity, £100 billion smaller last year. So when you think about the big challenges that faces us, you know, reforms that we need in the economy, but things like climate change, they've really got to think about the role of public spending in that and devise fiscal rules that are responsive to that.
But when it comes to, you know, balancing the books and how much we're overspending, how much money is coming in, how much is going out, in the short term, do you think it's necessary that perhaps we do overspend a bit because the UK economy needs it, and therefore we manage that later in a more healthy economic cycle?
Yeah, well, so look, governments have always borrowed. This is what governments do. They have the balance sheet in order to be able to do that. And so the question is it sustainable? So when you look at interest rates that are record low, if ever there was a time to invest in long-term things...
It's spend now, surely. Negative interest rates. It's going to cost you to actually keep your money elsewhere.
And, you know, the logic of borrowing is that the things like responding to climate change affects multiple generations. So we borrow now, we spread the cost across multiple generations.
Now, the Mail has got this whole massive article about how to stop a cold. You know, in the first 2 hours do this, in the next 8 do that, etc., etc. Loads of different ideas and strategies. It's costly, isn't it, in the workplace when we are unwell?
Absolutely. So I love this article. As someone that has just recovered from a cold, we've all been there.
Men don't get colds. We just get flu. We get flu.
They get man flu and they do get it.
They get colds.
Exactly.
Come on.
We haven't got time for that. Anyway.
Absolutely. But, you know, there is huge economic cost to this. So it's, you know, it's quite strange that there isn't actually a cure to the common cold, given that, you know, when we have the cold, people not only have to take time off work...
Not necessarily.
Well...
I work through mine.
Well, people work through, but your productivity tends to be much lower.
Yeah, but then some people complain if people come in with colds or flu.
And then you affect everyone else. But also it's the time that parents take off for kids that are ill. So actually, the net economic impact of it, and, you know, there was a really interesting study that was done in the US that put it in the billions. So strange that we still don't have a cure for this thing that is so costly.